Apollo 13 launched on April 11, 1970. The three-man crew consisted of Commander Jim Lovell, Command Module Pilot Jack Swigert, and Lunar Module Pilot Fred Haise, and the mission was the third American attempt to land a man on the moon. The mission's landing site was the Frau Mora Highlands. On launch, the Saturn V's center engine cut out prematurely. This was counteracted by burning the remaining four engines longer. On the second day of the mission, when the spacecraft was 205,000 miles from Earth, Command Module Pilot Jack Swigert was given a command from Houston to stir the liquid oxygen tanks. A short circuit in the wiring ignited insulation and quickly caused the number 2 oxygen tank to explode.
I happened to be on my shift, and it was April 13th of 1970 in the mission evaluation room, and I had my headset on, and I was monitoring the warning system, and I heard in my headset Jack Swigert was the first one that said, "Houston, we've had a problem." And I looked at the console that I was accustomed to looking for an alarm, and I saw the master alarm come on the telemetry, as well as a number of other alarms at the same time. And what had happened was an oxygen tank had exploded. It was so significant that the great pressure came from the explosion, blew the entire panel that covered that side of the service module away.
With their precious oxygen leaking out into space, soon the astronauts would not only run out of air to breathe, but also power due to the command module's unique fuel cell that combines hydrogen and oxygen to make water and electrical energy. Because the command module, now without power or oxygen, was essentially dead, the astronauts turned to the lunar module to use as a lifeboat to get back to Earth. However, the lunar module was only designed to support 2 men for a day and a half, so the crew had to turn off many of the ship's electrical systems to save what battery it had left. One of the systems turned off was the heater, which meant temperatures inside the lunar module dipped down to 40 degrees Fahrenheit. Another problem faced was a buildup of carbon dioxide in the ship. This happened because the oxygen scrubber in the lunar module was depleted quickly with the additional workload of the third astronaut. Unfortunately, the oxygen scrubbers that went in the command module were square, and the ones that went to the lunar module were round. But, with the help of NASA's brightest engineers, the men were able to improvise a so-called mailbox rig, which cleans the air of CO2 by drawing it through a square command module scrubber.
Make those square filters fit into that bag and not leak, as well as that hose that was hooked up to what we call the suit fan that would blow, would actually suck the air out of the cabin through those filters, that square filter assembly that you can see on the internet, and cleaned out the carbon dioxide from the air. So now they've solved that problem. They can breathe, and they'll have plenty of clean atmosphere within.
The fuel cells in the command module provided the astronauts with clean drinking water, so because they were no longer functioning, the men faced a serious shortage. Fred Haise contracted a urinary tract infection because of his little water intake. After the explosion, the astronauts continued towards the moon, and went around in order to use its gravity to slingshot them back to Earth. In order to do this, they had to do a burn with the descent propulsion system in the lunar module. This burn was so accurate that only minor course corrections were necessary throughout the remainder of the flight. Now, the men are almost back to Earth, but face one more serious problem. They believe that the heat shield on the bottom of the command module, designed to protect the astronauts from extreme temperatures of re-entry, possibly could have been damaged in the explosion. During re-entry into Earth's atmosphere, there is a radio blackout due to ionization of air around the capsule. This phenomenon usually only lasts 4 minutes. However, Apollo 13's re-entry blackout was almost 2 minutes longer than expected. This mission was called the Successful Failure because even though the crew never landed on the moon, getting back to Earth was NASA's finest hour. The mission helped bring the United States together in a time of war that had divided the country morally. This also shows that we, as a country, together, are capable of anything.
Ground control to Major Tom. Ground control to Major Tom.